On June 22nd, the Wrap first broke the scoop that Michael Keaton is in talks to reprise Batman for the upcoming Flash movie. Since then, speculation on exactly what this could entail has taken on a life of its own. In this video then, I will go through what the original scoop claimed and which parts of it have been confirmed by the trades, before sharing with you all exclusive new information that was revealed to us. And this information suggests that the current talks with Keaton could be for a much more extensive participation with the future of DC on film than any of us have previously thought. The initial scoop was broken by the Wrap on June 22nd and read: After nearly 30 years, Michael Keaton is in talks to return to the role of Batman to appear alongside Ezra Miller in Warner Bros.' upcoming movie The Flash, the Wrap has learned exclusively. Talks with Keaton are in the very early stages. It is far from a sure thing, and can go either way. No details are currently available about how big or small Keaton's role is. That cannot be stressed enough. This is not yet a sure thing. But second only to Keaton being in talks in the first place, the most important bit of the scoop is this. That plot will introduce general audiences to the idea of the multiverse, one of the core concepts underpinning DC Comics. For the non-fanboy set, the multiverse refers to a shifting number of alternate universes that coexist within the larger reality depicted in DC Comics. Originally created to explain various contradictory changes in the company's characters experienced over the decades, it allows several different versions of the same characters to simultaneously exist and occasionally interact. DC has been setting up a multiverse on the small screen, but with The Flash, the multiverse would make its way to the big screen as well. Loosely based on the 2011 DC Comics crossover event Flashpoint, previously announced as the film's title at Comic-Con 2017. The story sees Ezra Miller's Barry Allen travel back in time to prevent the death of his mother. The result? Allen inadvertently creates another universe protected by Michael Keaton's Batman, now 30 years older. The article also makes a point of saying that the two sequels to Tim Burton's Batman movies starring Michael Keaton, the two glorified toy commercials directed by Joel Schumacher, more on him later, will be disregarded. That, then, was the original scoop, and it is not just a rumor to be taken with a grain of salt, because later in the day, the trades lent their weight to the scoop. Variety confirmed that early talks with Keaton are indeed taking place, but otherwise offered nothing new. Deadline Hollywood, however, did offer more, as they wrote. Deadline has confirmed that Michael Keaton, who first played the big screen version of Batman in 1989 for Warner Bros. And its 1992 sequel Batman Returns, is in early talks to return to the role once again. Keaton would play Batman in a Nick Fury-like role starting with Warner Bros. The Flash starring Ezra Miller, and could continue to play the Dark Knight in other upcoming DC movies like Batgirl. Reportedly, the Keaton Batman won't impact the mythology being hammered out by Matt Reeves' reboot The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson as the Caped Crusader, and it will pick up his storyline after Batman Returns. This echoes what the Hollywood Reporter found out, namely that Ezra Miller is on board to star as Barry Allen, aka The Flash, in the feature that will be directed by IT filmmaker Andy Muschietti. But wait, there's more. If a deal makes, Keaton wouldn't just return for Flash, but possibly for several other DC-oriented film projects. Sources tell The Hollywood Reporter that the role being envisioned for the veteran actor is akin to the role played by Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Something of a mentor or guide or even string puller. Batgirl is one of the projects in development that could fall into that category. All the trades also stress that this deal may not happen, but as of right now, there are talks. What is interesting though, is that two of the trades claim Keaton is in talks for a role compatible to Nick Fury. while the initial scoop highlighted the multiverse, in which different iterations of the same character exists and may even interact. This all lines up with what we heard. The scoop we're about to bring you doesn't come from any anonymous inside source, but from known scooper Mikey Sutton of the recent Geekosity magazine fame. Where DC on film is concerned, his track record is a solid one. And he was one of the few who revealed that the Snyder Cut would be coming to HBO Max ever since the wheel started rolling on it in November of 2019. About Keaton's possible future with DC on film, he told us, "When the Hollywood trades revealed that Michael Keaton was in talks to reprise his role as Bruce Wayne in the upcoming Flash theatrical film, and possibly other roles in the DCEU, it wasn't the first time that he has been discussed to return. A live-action Batman Beyond was considered before, but Warner Brothers felt there wasn't sufficient interest for them to greenlight it. That has changed with AT&T, who sees the IP as ripe for 90s nostalgia, which is about to hit full bloom in the near future. Not only that, but it's yet another way of expanding their hugely successful Dark Knight properties, especially on content-hungry HBO Max. According to Mikey Sutton's sources, a live-action Batman Beyond is being talked about again, and this time for HBO Max, although no development has begun. If they could net Keaton for it, the possibility of this materializing greatly increases. So, there you have it. In addition to recurring roles for DC on film, talks could also include Keaton's participation in a Batman Beyond series for HBO Max. In addition to that, a possible Batman series with Affleck remains on the table, and so does the upcoming trilogy with Robert Pattinson. And all of it would be possible because of the multiverse concept, to be introduced on film in The Flash. In a follow-up piece to their original scoop, the Wrap expanded on this by saying, "Back in 2017, as rumors mounted that the DC films would be moving away from Ben Affleck's version of the Caped Crusader, we wrote that a Flashpoint movie, which would involve time travel and alternate universes, would allow them to recast the character without starting from scratch on this whole film universe. And that's still true. But clearly, we didn't think big enough back then. Bringing back Keaton this way could allow Warner to turn the frustrations with the state of the DCEU into a long-term win. And they could even use this to bring the Snyder Cut of Justice League into the DCEU canon." The Wrap then talks about the history of the multiverse in the DC comics before continuing. While having a multiverse in a huge superhero franchise might have seemed crazy a few years ago, Marvel introduced the multiverse concept in its film Avengers Endgame. Considering how much money that movie made, it looks like audiences can handle it. And for DC, there are endless possibilities with the multiverse. For one thing, it's a way for Warner to keep all the parts of the DCEU that people like Wonder Woman and Aquaman, while also rebooting the parts of it that haven't panned out. Basically, they can reboot things without actually tearing down the franchise and starting over. On top of that, all the DC movies that aren't part of the DCEU could retroactively be added to it. Think about it. If Keaton's Batman is in the DCEU, then that would in turn put both of Tim Burton's Batman movies in the DCEU as well. And the Snyder Cut. These multiverse shenanigans could make it so that both Joss Whedon's and Zack Snyder's versions of Justice League are a part of the DCEU canon. Without the multiverse, that would absolutely not be possible because the two versions contradict each other. Likewise, they could bring Joaquin Phoenix's Joker into the DCEU. About that, I've had private conversations with Mikey Sutton where he's told me that AT&T and Warner would love to bring Joaquin Phoenix's Joker into the DCEU. But it won't happen until both director Todd Phillips and Phoenix agree. So far, they haven't. but a truckload of cash might change their minds. Either way, the earlier plan of just doing standalone movies with no real connections between them outside of loosely taking place in the same universe is dead. From here on out, connectivity is king. Anyway, the rap continues. Regardless, the possibilities are inarguably endless, but we should be clear that we can't know yet how far Warner and DC will take this. For now, we just know that Michael Keaton's Batman will cross over from his standalone movies into this shared universe. What they choose to do after that remains to be seen. Maybe they'll explore the multiverse further, and maybe it'll be a one-time thing. Right now, it could very well be that nobody knows for sure what will come next. That is perfectly in line with what we've heard as well, both from Mikey Sutton and from others. The future depends not only on the reception to the Snyder Cut, but on who they want to come back that they can convince to come back, and in what capacity. Before we conclude, we must also address the sad passing of Joel Schumacher. While controversial with Batman fans, and there is irony in his passing on the very same day that Michael Keaton's possible return to Batman breaking, he was nonetheless a great filmmaker with some fantastic movies under his belt. On his Batman movies, he did what he was told to do by the studio, and while some of his own contributions were questionable, he actually apologized to fans afterwards. I know of some filmmakers who could take a cue from that. So, let's remember him for his fantastic movies, like The Lost Boys, St. Elmo's Fire, and Falling Down. Let there be no doubt that he was a great filmmaker. With that, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments.